Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
I put my preferences in, I actually picked the ones I want. You good? So, finance wasn't one of them, but here I am.
At least we have quorum.
Yeah, all right. We'll start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 2, election of a chairperson. Do I have any nominations?
Chris Champagne.
All right.
Nominate Chris
Lori
Champagne.
nominates me. I accept. Are there any more nominations? Nominations going twice. Third call. Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 2-0. Item 3, public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make a comment? Public comment going twice. Public comment 3 times. Public comment is closed. Item 4, financial management summary. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Bucci.
Okay, good evening. So this report, Ms. Chris, you'll pick up on this, or you probably won't because you weren't here. But we changed the format in the manner in which we're reporting tuition and transportation. In the past, there used to be one category for tuition and one category for transportation. The issue with that is that the out-of-district special education costs that we incur relate to tuition and transportation, and those items dovetail into the special education cost grant. What we've been doing in the past is I would give you a number that I expected that we were going to be receiving during the year as it relates to the proceeds under that grant, and then I would blend them into the numbers, and you never saw the gross cost, and you never saw the offset. So what we're doing now is, if you look on page 2 of the detail, which is essentially page 3 and 4, you'll see where we categorize tuition and transportation local. What that means is that's tuition, regular ed public schools, our regular busing for all the Seymour public schools, VOAG school transportation, which we call local, and also special education local, which is for students who are receiving special education services but that are in district. When you go to the special education non-local now, you're going to see 3 categories: tuition special ed public, private, and non-local. And transportation non-local. These items equal what we file for the grant. So if you were to look at the projected fiscal year end June 30, 24, gross costs of $3,255,000, you see that in the non-local section?
I see the 255.
3,255, 310?
255, 310.
No, go to the number above it, the gross cost, before the 700.
Am I on the wrong page?
You're on the right page, but go, oh no, go to page, go to the detail, go to the page.
Detailed
to the
analysis.
There you go. Okay. Now you see that section of the, do you have a page 2 of 3 on the bottom?
I have page 2 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 4.
Okay. You want page 3 of 4.
Okay. Special ed non-local.
Yeah, now you see
Oh, yeah,
3255.
yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
so
I see
now,
what you did. Okay, yeah.
that 3255, 310 is the amount that we actually reported on December 1st as part of our initial filing for the grant, for proceeds. What I'm expecting is to receive proceeds of $700,000. Now, the way we're doing this is, that may change. We'll get our first proceeds on this in February. Then they'll give us an early indicator. As you may recall, last year, our expenditures were up roughly $350,000, and we received $50,000 less. So what I'm finding is that we can no longer use the prior method of calculating what we think we're going to get going forward, because the state has thrown the calculation out the window and they just send whatever they want now. So I'm projecting that we're going to receive 700. If we were to receive what we're supposed to receive based on $3,255,000 of gross costs, we'd get over $900,000. I'm not expecting that to happen considering what happened last year. So we broke this out so we can track, because the biggest area of fluctuation during the year is special education non-local. This is where we can't control placements, and essentially the costs are what they are. When we go through the budget process, you will see that I'm going to be providing detail on how that number accumulates, okay? So this report follows what I've been doing in prior reports, which is to try to give a better sense of how these expenditures in all of these categories line up. We've consolidated facilities, we've consolidated technology, we've now recast the way we're reporting tuition and transportation. We've done the same thing with supplies, where we've isolated educational materials and supplies from things like, say, custodial supplies. So getting into the variances for the month, this report, by the way, is showing projected net deficit at this point of $62,000, which is being driven mostly by the deficit of $73,000 in facilities. If you go to the first page, you can see the overall summary number. You may recall that at the 11th hour last year, after our budget was cut back severely, we had cut out about $130,000 from building repair and maintenance. Unfortunately, the buildings aren't cooperating. And we're still incurring more than $110,000 of building repair and maintenance. We're up to about $185,000. By the way, the original budget was $240,000, which is a more realistic number. We've been able to compensate for the other deficits with surpluses. For instance, in certified staff, after we had adopted the budget last year, we memorialized the reduction of the one high school principal. So that reduced the administrative on page 2 of 4 down about $132,000. We offset that with compensation relating to the appointment of a new athletic director, and then also interim payments to current and substitute staff to fill some open positions. We also, if you recall, the board approved the addition of one math teacher at the middle school. So essentially, administration provided us with a surplus, and regular instruction went up. Where we are seeing some big swings right now is special education instruction. We're still looking for a school psychologist to fill that role. All in all, and we also have some savings in unified arts and guidance. These are all essentially interim positions that we're hoping to fill because we have people substituting to fill these roles in the interim. Non-certified staff. Oh, and by the way, if you look at the substitutes on account 119, you're going to see where we talked briefly about the fact that we were running over budget on substitute teachers, and that's really an offset to what we're not spending in the positions that are open. On the bottom, essentially, you're again, now substitutes for non-certified staff on the bottom includes, I learned as I was putting this report together, it includes some custodial substitutes, which I'm going to have reclassed into custodial pay. These are not the part-time custodians. These are some of just the substitute part-time people we've had. These aren't the permanent part-time people. Right. These are
People pick up the phone and say, "Can you come in for today?"
Yeah, it's that kind of thing.
I didn't even know we did that.
Well, when I started looking at this, I was like, how do we have this kind of a swing? And as it turns out, if it's custodial, it needs to go into custodial.
Yeah, and it's very important.
So I'm going to move that
Yes.
next month.
We've done a lot of that over the past couple of years where we've reclassified
things that are
things that didn't make sense.
Getting booked, right.
That makes sense.
And I do look, when I see something like this, I take it apart. And I try to figure out what it is and why it's causing a variance. And generally, there's either a legitimate reason we are spending the money for that particular purpose, or it's just the way things were getting booked historically, and then you have to go and find out what's in there.
The breakdown is crucial, though, because it really differentiates specifically with these categories.
Right, now, if
Because
you
with actually substitute teachers compared to substitute custodian, it's not fair for all of that to get lumped in and look like it's substitute teachers.
I would hazard a guess that
Yeah.
with the $22,000 positive variance, the custodians were probably breaking even.
Yeah.
Okay? Well,
Exactly.
probably half of that 50,000 relates to custodial pay. So, all in all, it's a natural offset. The office secretarial surplus in there was the result of having vacancies at the beginning of the year in the high school secretarial position. Employee benefits is running on right to the money. It's only a $5,000 variance. Now, tuition and transportation local, special education local transportation is projected to be over budget about $85,000. And what that's from is having to supply additional transportation vehicles for in-district students who attend the in-district schools. We have instances where we have a bus picking up one child and driving that one child to a school, and we're required to do that. Even if you live within walking distance of the school, we're required to provide you with transportation to and from the school. As it relates to the non-local, while the swing in expenses from last year, if you look at the actual last year, it was $2,797,000 of gross costs, and this year it's $3,255,000. When we did the budget recast in August, I moved significant funds into this category. I already knew we were going to be significantly over budget. So we are only projecting to be roughly $125,000 over budget at this point, even though the gross costs have increased by almost $500,000 over last year. And that's taking into consideration that I'm only expecting to pick up an additional 30-something thousand in proceeds. Last year we received $669. This year I'm only projecting $700. Like I said, in February, at the end of February, when we get that first tranche of funding, that'll give me an early indication of where this is going. Last year when this happened in February, and I saw that the proceeds came in at $100,000 less than the prior year on expenses that were higher, I was like, okay, this is not going to go well. And it turned out that it didn't. Facilities, most of this is, how do I characterize this? Routine, unanticipated costs, okay? We just don't know what is going to break. We just know something is going to break. We know something is going to break down. Here's some great news. We've been tracking energy. And number one, we didn't see the spike that I was being cautious about when we added all the new air conditioning units to the high school. So over the summer, there wasn't a great departure in our electric usage. We track kilowatt hours and cubic feet of gas every month. And then we tie it into where we project out based on last year. So I'm projecting that we're going to have a potential pickup in the energy category of some $58,000. We look at this every month. This is the first cold spell we've had, really, of any consequence.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if we're realizing any savings from the heat pumps.
Yeah, well, actually, yes, because here's one of the things about the heat pumps is the heat in the high school is irregular as it relates to the radiators. You can walk in some offices and there's cool air coming out, and you walk into other offices and there's warm air coming out, and this is just in central office. And I'm sure it's like this throughout the school. They're very hard to regulate. With the heat pumps, with individual settings in the rooms, only those rooms that need to have heat augmented are actually running and producing heat. If you happen to be in a room where the radiator is producing sufficient heat, your heat pump's not going to come on because it doesn't need to. So what the heat pumps have really done for us is they've enabled us to equalize the temperature throughout the entire school without having to crank the heat up so we can heat the rooms that are cold or while we're overheating the rooms that are warm. So it has actually enabled us to do that. Heat pumps will work until you get down to about 10. Then they basically don't, they can't assist too much after that. So we've had really great success with these heat pumps in generating heat, because I do know that last year, which was our first year in the building when we didn't have these, people had heaters under their desks. And those heaters go on, and they're not efficient. You're plugging them in, they're sucking down electricity, and God forbid you forget to turn the thing off when you go home at night, it's a potential risk. So we've been able to eliminate that too. So, like I said, I was just monitoring to see what the impact was going to be over the summer from running those heat pumps. Now, we're only running them in central office. The school, for the most part, was closed. So I'm expecting that the savings that we're going to get this year is also going to translate into some more savings next year as well. So when we go through the budget, you'll see that I'm hoping that we're going to carry this forward. Aside from that, there really aren't any other significant departures in some of these other areas. Again, technology and instructional materials and supplies. As it relates to this variance in instructional materials and supplies, we do have a couple of grants that we need to look at to determine whether we can, for instance, we have a right to read grant that we may be able to use to offset some of the costs for instructional materials. I have not done that yet. So when I give you a potential $62,000 projected loss, understand it's December 31st, and obviously my goal is to make this disappear by the time we get to the end of June. As far as the audit, we fulfilled all of, the BOE fulfilled all of its obligations by the end of November. We recertified our EFS on November 30th. For your sake, Lori, I don't know if you're familiar with this EFS process, but every school district in the state is required to submit to the education financial system. That means we essentially upload a data file from our accounting system that incorporates all of our local spending, all of our grant money, and it ties into special education. The state has 3 different systems. They actually talk to each other. When we do the filing, which is due by September 1, and we upload that, it will then go out and determine, did you report the same numbers to the grant system that you're reporting into EFS? Did you report the same numbers to special ed that you're reporting into EFS? You have to essentially eliminate all of those questions. You certify. November the 1st, the state opens it up for everybody and says, okay, if you have any adjustments, here's your one shot, second bite at the apple, make your adjustments. We had a net $2,000 adjustment to our special education grant, which we're going to have every year. We're going to have an adjustment because your second filing is March 1. You still have March, April, May, and June. It's impossible to guess that well. I mean, if I was able to guess that well, I'd probably be picking the numbers. But the point is that we were able to recertify November the 30th. Dr. Compton and I signed off on a representation letter in December, early December, before the holiday. And the state grant report was submitted on time by the end of the year. So we did not have any proposed adjustments to our financial statements last year from the auditors. And that is my report. I'll take any questions.
No, I thought I had one. Lori, anything? It'll come to me.
Please understand too, at this time, there's still been positions that we were not able to fill. For example, with the business teacher position at the high school, it's still open. We've been very lucky to have Mr. Catlin coming back. So basically, that's been some savings from not a full salary. As we said, we haven't had a full-time school psychologist. We are supplementing if there's a need for any other additional work. Also, also, in regards with the counselor, we had one out at the high school for the complete semester. She'll be returning now the end of the month. So there have been some positions that have been vacant that have been some savings, but it's not what we want, what's best for children, but it's basically what we're dealing with. As Mr. Bucci has explained, our biggest expense right now is dealing with special education. We've really got to look at and analyze these bus routes and try to figure out truly efficiency with the elementary students and so forth. There was additional cost for moving the preschool from Chatfield to Bungie, but I knew that was going to happen, but it's worked out. Overall, it's been a good program over there. The other thing we've got to really focus on is, as he talked about, facilities, because we only budgeted 120, because when we had to go down to a 2.5, when you look at what can we cut, we went down the areas that we felt that would not affect student achievement and our kids in the classroom. Unexpected things have happened that you don't plan for, that, like you said, with older buildings, it's going to happen. So we're now, as he said, up to $170-some thousand, and we're not to the end of January yet. So let's hope that we don't have catastrophes, because it really makes it difficult. That's when we end up, like you said, we only budgeted $120,000 plus additional expenses with special education. You cannot always determine, because if you have students who move in and they've got an IEP or they've got specialized placement, then we have to honor that. And again, that's all the unexpected things that can happen with the budget. And we don't have what's allowed as a contingency fund, like a lot of states do. They allow you to have a 2% contingency fund, but that doesn't work in Connecticut.
All right. I don't remember what my question was, but I'm good. If I think of it, I'll email you.
Or tomorrow.
We'll talk, yeah, I'm sure after tomorrow. Lori, you good?
I'm good.
All right, we just need a motion to approve. Motion to do all that.
Okay, motion to recommend to the full board the approval of the January 10th, 2024 financial management summary.
All right, motion by Lori, I will second that. Any other questions, discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 2-0-0. Item 4B is the budget. Tomorrow night, for those in the audience, we'll have our budget workshop here tomorrow
Yes.
at 6 p.m. All right, reports. I don't have any chair report. I think you talked.
Right,
Unless you have something else?
No, I don't have anything else to say. I just want to remind the public to, if they would like, it will be on YouTube, so that everybody understands specifically what we're doing. Just to come out or listen to it online. And that workshop will start at 6 o'clock. Be here at the meeting soon.
With that, motion to adjourn. Second, all those in favor? Have a good night.